And we're live.
Welcome to tonight's Finance Committee meeting. We have a roll call.
Mr. Fisher,
Here.
Ms. Chesser,
Here.
Mr. Dahl,
Yeah.
Ms. Kreimer is absent, Mr. Michelson.
Here.
I put forth a motion to excuse Ms. Kreimer.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I put forth a motion to add into today's agenda a discussion about the app. And with that, I would like to put forth a motion to adopt today's agenda as amended. Do I have a second?
What did you want to add in?
Discussion about the app.
What does that mean?
There's a Gulf Manor app. Came up in an executive meeting, or we want to have a discussion?
An app, an offer, an app,
Computer, a phone.
an actual app,
App,
correct.
app. The Gulf Manor app.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
With that, I put forth a motion to adopt the minutes from our previous meeting on the 24th. Does anybody have anything to change?
Need a second?
First to second, is anybody second?
I'll second it.
Does anybody have any comments or changes? All those in favor?
Aye.
Our minutes are accepted. So first on our agenda is
It's the 24th.
so the first item is the financial package for February. Mar.
Okay. I thought it said man, like May.
Mar.
Too soon.
All right, could you give us a rundown on financial package?
Yeah, no problem. Okay, for the month of February fiscal year 25, the village had a combined bank balance of $3,332,261.09. Of this amount, $151,829.38 can be found in the village's primary checking accounts, and $1,492,028.96 can be found in the village's high interest savings account. The remaining balance resides in other village dedicated funds. Remaining debt balances, I should say. The village generated $123,265.12 in general fund income taxes. That's RETA collections surpassing February of fiscal year 24 by 26%. That's pretty significant, as you can see. The village has not received the first biannual disbursement of real estate taxes as of yet. That is current. The village received $576,162.76 in general fund receipts. The number is $431,872.28 more than February of fiscal year 24 due to the receipt of the Hamilton County reimbursement for North Weehee development. The Star Ohio Fund earned $5,736.68. The Fifth Third Savings Account earned $4,205.77. Top 5 payees for the month were payroll, Rumpke Container, Ohio Police and Fire, Jefferson Health Plan, and OPERS. Total village general fund appropriation spent for the month was in the amount of $175,251.54. This figure is $113,368.86 more than February fiscal year 24. Again, due to North Weehee demolitions paid to Alpha Demolitions last year. The village had 17 outstanding payments that total $22,663.86. The village administration will continue to monitor appropriation spend and make any adjustments deemed necessary.
Thank you, Eric. Next conversation is a conversation regarding the increase of fines to the mayor's court. That was brought to my attention earlier on. Who in the administration wants to give a background on this?
Would it be more appropriate for the Police chief too.
Yeah, I'll speak to it. It's in addition to the court costs. So recently Hamilton County raised their court costs by $20. We want to do the same to make sure that we can keep up with any needs operating the mayor's court. The funds will be dedicated to the court operations fund. There's a line item in there. We could use that for technology or facility upgrades or equipment or training, computers, anything like that that ties into the operation of the court. Like I
So what are
said,
the current fees now, and what are we going back to?
we're going from 90 in court costs to 110. Hamilton County is 130 right now.
And that money goes into which fund?
The additional $20 would go into the court operations fund. It's court operations and facilities is how it's done.
Is this in anticipation of future higher costs, or is it just in reaction to what Hamilton County is doing?
It's not so much future higher costs, but we want to keep ahead of the court of any technology that's needed. Definitely things aren't getting less expensive. We need to be able to, we have technology needs in the court now, such as adding monitors for playback of body cam video, cruiser video, things like that. We don't currently have. And any just future improvements or repairs that may be needed that we're not aware of.
Is there money in the current budget for those line items?
This isn't a,
So Eric,
yeah, Eric can speak to the budgeting of it, but basically when somebody commits a violation in Gulf Manor, when somebody impacts the safety of the residents and they pay a citation to Gulf Manor, some of that money goes to the county, some of it goes to the state, and these are funds that can stay here and maintain the facilities here. It's difficult to budget. It depends on, one, how many citations are written in a year, but then on top of that, it also determines, it's decided by how many of those are actually paid in that year. So Eric can speak to that a little bit more, but I don't think it's
so we're getting kind of,
relevant.
mayor's court is not a fund-driven thing. We're not discussing revenue. It's not a revenue generator. It's an operating expense. So historically, if you look back, we passed an ordinance, it's been a few years to increase the last time Hamilton County increased this. So what we don't want to do is get too far behind, and then we have to come in here and say, okay, we're raising our costs $100. And everybody says, whoa, $100? That's insane. So historically, when they go up, we go up, but we stay away from their fee. That's why our increase is only 20 versus theirs, which I believe was 50 overall.
Well, my question is based around, is this a need? Like, is this a need, or are we just?
So I'm explaining, it's a need because again, if the costs keep going up, then eventually we're gonna come in here and then we're gonna have a shock and awe effect, what we're saying.
Well, that's what I was trying
Yeah, we
to
don't wanna-
identify, is what are these costs that are
We
going up?
don't want
and
to
if there's
jump, we
other
don't
funding
want to jump these fines we'd rather do it in small increments when we know surrounding agencies are doing it versus get behind, run into a need, then raise the core cost and then have time to do whatever would be needed with those funds that would be generated over time.
Yeah.
Again, I'll just caution you when you discuss the mayor's court not to balance it with revenue and budget and buying things because it's not a revenue generator. It's simply there to operate the court. And when we get too far behind, we have to operate the court, then the increase is so drastic that it shocks everybody because they were talking 70, 80, $100 versus the conversation we have today, which is 20. So that's why we do it this way.
Do we have numbers on what our current costs to operate are?
That'd be a question.
What is your question in terms of the annual budget, the annual appropriations, or are you talking about what are the current costs
Well,
that are charged? This is a fee schedule
If we're
increase.
being asked,
As I
Correct,
understand,
yeah,
correct?
it's something to do with.
Yeah, I'm afraid that we might be getting confused between
We are.
fines and costs and just, this is
I
a
don't
fee
think I'm
schedule
getting
increase.
confused, actually. What I'm asking is we're being asked to increase fees for court costs for people who come in. I'm asking, what does it cost to run court currently, what is the gap that we need to make up to mandate these increased fees for people coming to the court?
So that's where I think the confusion may be coming from. There is no gap currently. The point I believe that was meaning the current cost to run the court is about $43,000, and the total amount of money coming in, call it revenue, right, which is not a revenue generator, is about $60,000. So there is a surplus in that fund, but again, that all of the surplus goes towards mayor's court operations, future operations, and it supports other software, it supports other services which are not directly mayor's court, but Baldwin, for instance, is their information systems for mayor's court and for citations and for, right, but that's not, I believe that's not just mayor's court that uses it, right? It's also communication with the county and outside of that.
Baldwin is just what Denise uses for managing.
Okay, so I apologize. I don't have the familiarity with, but there are, meaning it goes towards, I believe there was one or two other things that mayor's court.
Yeah, there's some other software.
No, there's software. I apologize. It's not off the top of my
So
head.
if we're running at around a 40% surplus annually, I'm not sure what the need is to increase fees at
Right.
this time.
I think that's what's not being explained. Maybe one of the officers can speak to the purpose of the fine to begin with.
And I'm just kind of shooting from the hip here, but we want court operated by the people using the court versus us coming to council for something from the general fund for a mayor's court need.
But we're
Tax
operating at a
dollars versus-
surplus.
We are, but there's also projects, there's future software projects like the bridges or different online portals for people to pay certain things. Again, we're trying to keep in step with Hamilton County with our fees.
I just feel the conversation is getting too much into like buying things. So I think if we need
that's
to
what's
take
being-
this discussion for another time, we can do that. This is not an emergency, but I think there's some understanding that we're getting into, we're basically saying you get a ticket off Manor so I can buy a computer. And that's not what this.
Well, that's what the chief presented. He said we need to buy monitors, we need to buy
No,
software.
he's saying that these things can be purchased out of there, but the baseline thing that you need to understand is it is to operate the mayor's court. Okay, so for example, Baldwin, if Baldwin decides that their annual fee next year is $8,000 instead of $5,000, you don't have a surplus anymore. If the other licensing software that is paid out of the mayor's court decides they want $10,000, which I just got one today that we haven't paid in 3 years, apparently, no fault of our own. So now we have to make up that difference. So that's where you're running even now, but the goal is to stay somewhat ahead so you don't fall behind, and then you have this sudden jump and this knee-jerk need to request the money. That's where the request comes in. It's not apples to apples. I know what you're hearing, yes, these ancillary things can be purchased out of that fund, but at the end of the day, it's to operate the mayor's court. It's to say if Ellen walks in and says, I want another raise, and you all decide, yes, she deserves a raise to operate the mayor's court, where does the money come from? Because if we've already had our budget and it's already been appropriated, we don't have the money. So then we have to come back and say, we all agree she needs a raise, we don't have the money, where do we get the money from? So as long as we stay ahead, we're not playing this balancing act, this catch-up game of, oh, we got to do this now, we weren't expecting it. It's just forecasting, it's all it is. Every time they go up, we go up. It's a historical thing, it's not a money thing, it's not a, gotcha, how we're going to get rich now. It's a historical thing. If you look in 2019 or 2020, we did the exact same thing. So we're right on par for about a 4 or 5 year increase, and it's $20. We're not talking, the county went up, I think it's 50 or 60. So we're not out here trying to gouge, we're not trying to match the county. We're just trying to stay ahead. I think the mayor.
Yeah, I was going to say that my eyebrows went up about it when I saw the legal memo on it because it was different than the way it was explained to me. What was put in front of me was that costs are going up. All right, look at what Cincinnati is having to do. Look what Hamilton County is having to do in terms of the costs. We're behind in how much we charge to begin with. So this is to just kind of keep us so that we don't get into a spot where we're having having to come to council and saying this is emergency, we gotta figure out where to get the money from. That's just about keeping with the trend with it. When I saw the legal memo, it looked like it's all about buying stuff, and I was like, wait a minute, and I called Rob today, I was like, what's this about? And I called Rob, and it I think it was unfortunately described very poorly in the legal memo.
If our, go ahead.
Well, I think that the whole concept of what the fees and court fees are is going out of whack. The reason why people have to pay money when they come into court is because we don't want them not to listen to the law. The whole purpose of laws and make sure that the laws are kept is a money value to a law. If I'm gonna speed, I'm gonna have to pay money, so it's not worth it for me to speed. It makes it more of a reason, right? We know speeding is dangerous because you could end up a lot more than just paying a fee. You could ruin someone's life forever. So the point of fees is really, now, what you decide how much to pay to take really should be based on what makes it that crime, where someone's gonna say, well, it's not worth for me to do the crime because I have to pay for it, right? Now, if everybody's going up around us and if suddenly Gulf Manor is gonna be, hey, let's go do crime in Gulf Manor because it's cheaper, that is an issue. If that would be the conversation, then I could hear where we're coming from. If we're talking about that, we can't balance our books are balanced when it comes to the court fees. When it comes to, even though we upped her salary almost by double, we still could swallow it. But if the conversation is that we have to be competitive because we have to make sure that people are not gonna do crime and not walk in here for fees, I'd rather that the court close down and we don't have anybody doing anything that needs a court. That would be the best for the village. We don't need that at all. I'd rather have everybody live according to the law and we don't have any fees and don't have a court in the first place, but it's not gonna work. We have to have courts because otherwise people violate the laws. That's my understanding of why there's fees attached to all of this. Having that conversation said, I'm willing to hear what everybody else has to say on it. But I also have a problem, and hard for me to swallow, is when you sit into a court and half of the time someone walks in with a violation, the court frees it and says, well, oh, I'm gonna let it go, and it's not an issue, and stuff like that. That to me is worse than any other fees. When someone does a crime and they come in and they're waiving their fees and waiving their violations more times than not, makes it more conducive to do crime in the village. And that is something I think we have to address. More than upping fees, is that when someone does a crime, they have to pay for the crime. And enough said that, oh, we'll just waive it, and then, okay, I feel bad for you, you gave an excuse and whatever, so we're gonna waive it. Crime should be paid for, and that's something I feel that has to be dealt with. I don't know the legal way of how to deal with it. I know it's not up to us, it's not our decision, it's solely up to the magistrate, but that is something that's very bothersome to me. I don't know about anybody else. Once we're on this topic, I figure we
So that's
should.
not entirely accurate. So that is an issue we have raised for probably the last 2 or 3 years. We took it to the mayor because ultimately it's not up to the magistrate, it's up to the mayor. And the mayor did a review or what have you and felt that, I'm obviously getting way off topic here, that the court was operating at a satisfactory level. The police department strongly disagrees with that. And we have expressed that several times. We have also expressed that with the solicitor and the village administrator. So I think maybe the council may need to get involved in this long term because it is an issue. Obviously, it's not for the police. We're not judge, jury, and executioner. We simply identify crimes and bring them before the court for the court to address. But we can tell you wholeheartedly that that portion of our system is failing. And I will stand on that.
So I appreciate your support.
But again, back to, I just want to make sure that we're understanding. I think the mayor hit it. I don't know about the legal memo. I can't speak to that, unfortunately. I don't know what that even is. So if it was spelled out in that manner, of just buying things, that's not what this is about. I think his first statement is 100% accurate. We're falling behind. We just stay where we're at. We don't want to get into a situation where it's costing us because it's not fair to us. It's not fair to the residents. It's not fair to the taxpayers or to cost them for something they haven't done. So that's where this needs to stay. Again, if we need to table it, we need to have further discussion about fee schedules until you understand what a fee schedule operates. So I can tell you right now, off the top of my head, If you were to receive a speeding ticket, which is $155, Golf Manor sees like $27 of that. So if you think this is like a get-rich-quick scheme, you're barking up the wrong tree. When that fee is paid, there's so many hands in the pot, it's not even funny. So as these things get larger on a grand scale, our contribution becomes more. And when you talk about the magistrate appointing a fee, if she doesn't appoint a fee high enough, guess who pays that? Golf Manor pays it. They don't pay it. She's already told them, all is forgiven. Well, guess what? It's still brought into our court, so somebody's got to foot that bill, and it's us. So, and we had that. We had that for a long time where so many fees were being waived that Golf Manor was footing the bill. So
So let me explain, let me understand what you're saying. You're saying if someone gets a ticket for whatever the case would be, right? So the certain portion has to go to the state, a certain portion has to go to the county. If we, Gulf Manor, goes ahead and says, well, you guys don't have to pay anything for this ticket because whatever excuse they gave us, Gulf Manor still has to pay the county and the state their portion.
everybody's hand is still out. Yeah. Those hands still want their money.
So if
It just doesn't
she,
come from the person that
I'm getting,
is the
so
reason for the
if
start.
she says that the ticket is non-existent, right, and takes it away, we still have to pay for it.
Not non-existent. If she says that they're guilty, but she doesn't assess the fine high enough to cover everybody, somebody's got to cover the bill.
When you're saying that way. So
So
if she erases.
Yeah, it's going through the court process. So you still have to pay the bill, even if she determines, all is forgiven and we're just going to accept, $5 in court costs because we've had that. So, but again,
Yes.
I'd like to interject one about a misstatement that was made, that it's the mayor that's determining whether these are waived or not. That's entirely the jurisdiction of the magistrate. I do appoint who the magistrate is. So yeah, I could replace the magistrate, but the proper complaint avenue would be from our prosecutor, not from our police department. Prosecutor's there every time, and what's not being shared here is the conversations I've been having with the prosecutor about how often is this happening and has it been addressed. Very difficult playing field to be on as far as telling someone in judicial that you want them to be more prosecutorial or you're going to fire them. They're supposed to be independent, right? So it's a difficult conversation to have, but I can be very clear about, hey, if we are not charging enough that we are going in the hole on this, we got to change something. And I requested to have a complete economic review of what our costs were. Eric did that for me. That's how we discovered that we're running at a surplus. So we don't have a problem with that. All right. Now I know, yes, the police department has been coming to me saying that there's a problem with it. I looked at the
sat
numbers
through
and we
one
don't have a
court. I
problem.
sat through a court, and I was shocked with what people were getting off of for what excuses. And what that causes is, from law enforcement, what that causes is that people repeat the crime again because they know they're gonna get off of it if they give some lousy excuse.
This isn't news to me, and what I would say, if you want to continue this conversation, be happy to have it with you, and not take up the finance committee's time with it, but.
Correct. That is a fair
so
request.
let me just clear one thing, because I am a law enforcement officer and my integrity and my honesty is what I live on. I never said you set the fines.
That's what I heard.
You just call me a liar.
Let's bring this back
So
to the
I did
discussion
not,
at hand.
I agree, but as a law enforcement officer, again, we've had this happen in council before, where council members or our board members make statements against my integrity. And that is not the statement that I made. So I want to make sure that is very clear that I did not say the mayor sets the fines that are assessed to the court.
You did not say that.
I did not say
You did
that.
not say that.
So let's make sure that is very clear, because
So
again,
please repeat for me what you said.
this is my career,
I didn't
my
even question
integrity.
your integrity.
So what
I'd like to call
said
it
was,
point of order. Can we get back on the discussion instead of infighting or whatever people said, it was
Point of
said,
order,
it's
accepted.
recorded. Let's continue the discussion at hand. Thank you for accepting the point of order. I just have one last question on this to Mr. Prittenoff, who I think would be the most appropriate person, I'm not sure. You said that currently court cost is roughly $40,000. $43,000. And what we currently bring in court costs to operate the court is around $60,000.
It's not to operate the court, it's what the village brings in as a total, because some of the aggregate total goes to mayor's court, some goes to the general fund,
And-
some goes to the local law enforcement. It really depends on the nature of the fine that's assessed. That determines which fund it goes to.
And do we know how much in court costs are brought in annually that actually go to fund the operation of the court?
I can look that up for you separately.
Because I think that would be a key point, is the whole thing is, do we have the funds to operate court
The
or
issue
not
is,
operate court?
the issue is, and the reason why we have to look at it as the aggregate is because there are certain court costs that come out of the general fund. For instance, the magistrate's salary, which is an integral part of the court, is not funded directly by the court, it's funded by the general fund. And the court generates money that goes into the general fund. So you have to look at how much is coming in and how much is going out in order to give that total. If you want a fund by fund breakdown, is the general fund spending more on mayor's court or less on mayor's court, depending on how much is bringing in, and each individual mayor's court fund or computer fund. I could build such an analysis, but that would take a significant amount of, I could not answer that.
So broadly, around $20,000 more is coming in annually
Correct,
than is going out
Correct.
towards the operation of the court.
absolutely.
Do we know where these excess funds have been going?
It goes to the general fund.
The main point here is that the court costs are going up 30 to 40%.
Is it
It's going up
30%?
50%.
I'm not sure what the percentage is.
We
I don't know what the fee
Yeah.
schedule is.
I still think we're confused about a lot of this. So, when I give my mayor's court report, I give the amount of what came in, for the previous month. So, the example here is for February, there was $6,000 approximately that came through the court. Not all that goes to the operation of the court. $20 for each citation goes towards operating the court. The rest of it goes to, like you said, the village, the computer fund, indigent drivers funds, other funds like that. We also pay public defenders when somebody comes into court, and we also pay translators. And those entities have also raised their fees. So, and we've had, Denise can attest, we've had mayor's courts where we've had 3 different language speaking translators in here. For court, we got to pay each one. We got to pay the public defender also. And what we're trying to do is by putting these fees in a fine schedule in court fees, is the person using the court is the person paying for it. We're trying to keep it from pulling from the general fund, from tax dollars.
It's pretty clear that you're saying that all the fees are going up and our portion is going to be less. In a year's time, that surplus could possibly be gone.
We raised, I can't remember the last time we raised it, but I remember presenting it to council and I was questioning why we weren't raising it more. We don't want to shock somebody. We want
I'll
to
give you an
raise it up.
example. The interpreter he speaks to, they're $200 a pop per appearance. So if they show up and then the case is continued for whatever reason, we have to foot that bill. Now, legally, we can't pass on the cost of interpreter because it's your rights to the defendant. So that comes out of the operating costs. Well, if that is continued, and that interpreter still shows up, and let's say the defendant doesn't show up, we still have to pay for that $200 appearance. And that happens quite often. The public defender is the same way. If the public defender shows and the defendant doesn't show, then we have to pay for that public defender time each time they appear in court with or without their defendant. If they request a continuance to gather documentation or whatever the case may be, we're still shelling out that $200 flat fee each and every time. So, and that's something else that I can't sit here and just say, we're going to need 1,000 interpreters this year. We don't know. So those are something that you can't really predict. And that's pretty much, I can tell you can ask Carolyn, our accounts payable, that's one of our most expensive costs right now that we're footing the bill for out of our budget.
So I know for myself, I would love, I'm all for making sure the village is funded as necessary, but I think I've set a pretty consistent standard on what I like to see. I'd like to see some hard numbers and see the facts and figures in front of me before any sort of decision to charge people more money is sent on to council, at least myself personally. I've made that request in many different areas of our village. I know for myself, my initial thought process would be to table this conversation for a moment, because as we heard, it's not an emergency at the moment. I'm definitely open to the idea, but I would love to see the facts and figures and how this $20 specifically, why $20 is going to make that difference or not. Because as you said, I might be missing something, I might be misunderstanding, but without the numbers in front of me, it would be hard for me to come to that understanding.
Respectfully, I think you're looking at it from a budget perspective, and it's.
This is finance committee.
Yeah, but it's not, it's also about, like Mr. Fisher said, disincentivizing bad behavior, and making sure that the court operates, in whatever future needs we need. We're not trying to operate on a break-even penny for penny budget, determined by, fines from people that are acting dangerously or committing crimes here in the village that we bring to mayor's court.
Sure, but I don't know if we're on a penny to penny budget or not. This has just been brought up today with no background or no information for me to digest. And, I'm just asking to have that information to look at it first.
Any other discussion? Have anything else to say? Anything? I hear from Zach that Zach really wants to have some more time to digest and get more information of where the funds are, where does it go, how much, what are we talking about, and the foreseeable future of how much this would bring in or how much it would need to fund the court. I'm under the impression that this is a area that people should have to pay. Cutting taxes is, because that's something we should work on, cutting taxes. That is something that is thrown onto a person. It's not chosen, and therefore people shouldn't have massive bills thrown onto them. This is something else. This is you did a crime. You didn't do something proper. That's somewhere where I don't feel we should be cutting costs. There's where we want people not to break the law. That's the whole purpose of this. So my humble opinion is that we should go up in prices. In fact, if we don't have to get from the general fund, we don't have to get other things to cover this cost. You're right, you don't know what those costs are, but then that would help us in the future be able to drop taxes on regular people. That's my humble opinion. But I'm willing to table this in order to get more information.
The only bit I would add on to that is, if we're considering disincentivizing crime, that's what the fee of the ticket is for. This is court costs. This is the fee to run the court.
It's part of it.
This isn't. It's not.
It's part of it. If somebody comes in the window and pays a ticket, they pay this.
Yeah, they do, because
the court.
the court has to function, but it's not a penalty against them. This is the fee to operate the court and to run the gears of the government to process this. It's the penalty is the ticket. The penalty is, if we want to have that discussion, that's a different discussion we can have. If we want to raise costs of a speeding ticket, that's a whole different discussion than court costs. But I'll just leave it there. That's my view.
Point taken. You have anything on that?
I think it's pretty clear. Operating costs go up, you raise the fees.
Okay, so I put forth a motion to table this discussion to get more information from Eric and put you on a task to come with our numbers on a clear sheet that the people in the village and the council members could read properly and understand what our operation costs are, how much we need to function, and if we increase, what would that do for us? And I ask for a second.
I'll second that motion.
Roll call.
You want a roll call?
Yes, I
No
do.
problem. Okay, Mr. Fisher,
Yes.
Ms. Chester?
Yep.
Mr. Dahl?
Yeah.
Mr. Michelson?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. This will be tabled and will not be extended up to full council. Next is a discussion with the PD vehicle 216 that is in line for replacement. We had this conversation a couple of times. It was budgeted for, and it would just need our approval to actually switch out and buy a new vehicle. Do we have a new vehicle for this one?
This is just, it's, right now, we're not looking for, or I'm not looking for your recommendation to council for the purchase. This is more just to put it on your radar that this is an expense which is coming. We have not identified a specific vehicle as of yet. We are looking around and sourcing different dealerships, attempting to go through the Ohio. There are pre-approved dealers that have already followed the Ohio buys protocol, so we can just buy directly from them. But a vehicle has not yet been identified. The need is there. It's on the schedule, but this is just bringing it to your attention.
Okay, you guys have our full blessing to continue that work and work on replacing 216 as I think it's our oldest vehicle in the lot.
Which one is that again?
That's the old
Ford Explorer.
Explorer.
26.
The old Ford.
it's been around for years.
Old faithful.
Yeah. So also it doesn't have the green paint on it yet. No, don't paint it. Waste the money. We're switching it out.
Maybe.
All right. Next, body cams in cars and video replacement.
So again, this is just to bring to your attention. Captain Reed showed me a quote of just over, just about $120,000, which is in order to replace the body cam and in-car video systems for all officers and for all vehicles. If I can speak to it, you could if you want.
Sure, I'm here, why not? So, our equipment is about 7 years old, and it's dying. I equate this to Apple and the iPhone, okay? When you get like 4 generations behind the iPhone, Apple kills your phone. Well, WatchGuard was acquired by Motorola, which Motorola's been around forever, huge company, a lot of overhang. I think they're killing our devices. When they were buying WatchGuard, we started seeing like little weird nuances, like purple discoloration in the screens, uploading issues, connectivity issues. And of course, when I go and say, hey, how do we fix this? They say, oh, we got the solution. And I get a bill or I get an invoice for $20,000. And it now tells me that the equipment that I have purchased no longer talks to the equipment that we have. So they say we got to buy new equipment. So when we purchased 125, the Tahoe last year, I wanted an in-car camera for that. And they will not sell me an in-car camera because it will not talk to the current installation equipment that we have. So in order to purchase one camera, which should have been $7,000, it was $21,000 because there's licensing software and equipment and install. So if we're going to explore that, the better option is Axon, which is formerly Taser. They're pretty much taking over the game for in-car cameras and body cams, reporting systems, like everything. They've got their hand in everything. So we'll probably explore leaving WatchGuard if we can secure a grant to acquire the equipment overall. If we can't secure a grant, obviously we're not budgeted to spend $120,000. We will have to kind of Frankenstein and piecemeal our transition to the upgraded equipment, but there's still going to be a good chunk that we'll buy off, about 20 grand to get the house in order. Once the house is in order, then we can slowly buy the new equipment to talk to the new equipment to the new equipment. The issue becomes, which is funny, the old equipment will work with the new equipment, but the new equipment, or equipment we have, won't work with the new stuff they want to sell us. It's a whole circus, no pun intended. But so that's what we're looking at. It's about, I would say honestly, probably about 150 because every time we do these programs, there's always unknowns. They tell you it's 120, you get everything installed, and then surprise, you go to flick the switch and nothing works. And then they say, oh, well, we forgot this. And the next thing you know, this is like $20,000. So what we're looking at is a JAG grant from the state of Ohio, and then there's the Edward Byrne grant from the DOJ. Hopefully federal grants are back operational here pretty soon. Those should both open up in the next month or so. We've got a meeting this week to discuss both of those and then additional grants as well. So that's just something to put on your radar that one way or another, we're going to have a conversation about body cams and in-car cameras. Prayerfully, it's we got a grant, yay, we don't need anything from you, or unfortunately, it'll be hey, we're gonna have to spend 20,000 to upgrade, and then we'll slowly add in. The fear is, and I don't wanna put other municipalities' business out there, but there's an incident ongoing right now that occurred on Interstate 75, and they have no cameras. Well, what we see in this modern day and age is cameras will clear everything in about 2 seconds. So had they had cameras, we would know right now what happened.
Was this the shootout on 75 last
Correct. This
week?
was the shooting after the pursuit where the individual was killed. And there's no camera footage. They have no cameras. So we don't want to get to that because God forbid something does happen. We want full transparency. We want to be able to see immediately what happened. Because all it does is build on unnecessary tension and unrest and turmoil and distrust. And it's like, hey, we have our system that's in place. And that's why we're getting this out to you guys now. We don't want to get to a point where everything dies and we have nothing, because that's Murphy's Law. That's when something bad will happen. And then it looks like there's corruption or distrust. And it's like, no, it's just watch car being watch car, Motorola being watch car, and killing our equipment. So that's the unfortunate down and dirty version of where we're at with cameras and iCams. Yay.
And there's no resolution or anything considered, it's just informative.
It's just informative at this point. Like I said, we're pursuing 2 grants. Hopefully we get them both, or either one. Either way, we'll take care of it. We'll be able to transition everything over to be continuing.
Yeah, I think that's great. Body cams, dash cams are really important in today's world.
Yeah, they are. I mean, they speak for themselves.
Awesome.
All right, thanks for that. Next, we have on the agenda a bill that came to, because it's more than was previously approved. Okay, so we have a bill here that was approved to speak with a lawyer for about $4,000, and we're up to $54.40. So the question is how to deal with this, and I'm not sure why it hit that hard and what.
What was this lawyer? What lawyer was this?
Forrest Brown Todd LLC. That was a discussion to have about people's contracts.
Oh, an HR lawyer?
I would recommend that this would be properly discussed in executive session, given that it concerns an employee and compensation and all that. And I would also recommend that Ms. Kreimer be involved in that, since she was involved in the, I believe, the original.
When does this have to be
Yeah,
paid?
when's the bill due?
What's that?
When's the bill due?
Ron, do you know when the bill is due?
I mean, the date on the invoice that I have is January 22nd. So that means that we're 2 months after receiving the bill. We have not paid the second portion. So, Mr. Fisher, if I may clarify your comments, there were 2 invoices received. The first invoice was $3,320, which the village did pay because I believe it was, I can't remember the date of the minute of the meeting, but there was up to 10 hours, which was a rate of $400 an hour. So that was a $4,000 authorization. So the village has paid that. The second bill, as was marked here, as we received March 19th, so that's 5 days ago, was for $2,120 for services rendered through December of 24. Again, January 22nd on the bill. So according to that portion of the bill, we are 2 months behind. And the request, at least from my seat, is that we're not late on a bill. We would want to make sure that we're paying this, that we're getting authorization from council. Now, that being in mind, keeping that in mind, the original appropriations for this was in 24. It still can be rolled into 25, but this is a significant number. This is about 10% of the total solicitor budget for the year. And understanding what Rob normally costs, I would caution, unless council's willing to go to appropriations and adjust that up, I would caution about authorizing much more than what was already spent in this. It would require an increase in appropriations for that line item.
Yes, I'm not comfortable approving this addition. We could go up to the 4,000, but more than that, we have to have a executive session on discuss. We've just got this bill, so there's not much we could do until we have a proper meeting about it. So we'll just have to table it until next meeting. Next, there is some good news about the roads project. Who wants to speak on that? Ron, you want to give us an update on that?
Yeah, the Ridge Acres Yosemite bid was accepted or recommended by the engineer for Alita to take that particular, to accept that bid.
So basically, there was a bid put out. We took the lowest cost, I believe, to that company that did part of our roads over here, and they're gonna start working on that project. Next we have is a recreation is requesting a 2,000
So we-
recreations to go to their fund to help with advertisement of events. There's been a big push in the village to spread more events and have people know about the events. The more people know about the events, the more people show up, or if there's free bikes, and they'll show up. But, so there was a request from Recreation to award them with $2,000. The question is, where would that money come from? The fact that we have a recreation group that is doing work and requesting something is something that we should definitely look at and give them the grants that they needed. That's my feeling. The question is where this money would come from and what has to be done in order to get it over to their use. Obviously, this is gonna have to be used responsibly, like all the money in the village, with proper receipts and proper prior requests. I'm not sure how it works exactly, but something they have to notify beforehand that they want to spend the money and what they want to spend it on, get approved, and then go spend it, receipts to get reimbursed, or the village will pay for it. On that, there are two different options where to take the money from. Either we could notch out of the reserve, or we could take this from the ARPA funds.
I have a question. Looks like we have, I don't know how this fund is allowed to be used or not, but it looks like there's $2,900 in unclaimed monies. Can that be used for
No.
anything?
That's a separate fund that basically is monies that was never claimed, as it says. It has to sit in an unclaimed monies fund for, I believe, 5 or 7 years. I can't remember the number exactly. And then it goes into the general fund. It could be used for something else, but that money was just
At the
moved.
time it's sitting there.
Correct. I believe that was money moved in 23 to 24, at the beginning of 24, I should say.
Okay, having that said, is there any discussion if the money should be granted or not? I'm a pro, I think it should be granted. Does anybody feel differently? Take that as a no. So therefore, everybody agrees that this should be funded. My opinion is it should be taken out of the ARPA funds. We should not notch into the reserve at any point, unless it's crucial. The reserve is there for when we're in crisis mode. That's exactly why there's a reserve. And this is not crisis mode. This is to promote stuff in the village and to spread more of the village and excitement in the village. Therefore, I feel that this should come from ARPA because that's exactly what ARPA was there for, is to promote community.
How much do we have in ARPA?
$168,000. I think about 163.
Do we currently have any other planned uses for it at the moment?
ARPA, no.
Okay.
So therefore, I'm gonna take the bold movement and make a motion to go ahead and move use of $2,000 of the ARPA money to be able to be used, allocate $2,000 of the ARPA money to be used for recreation in a responsible manner.
Second to
All those in favor?
that. Is, real quick for discussion, is this something that Rob has to put into like a resolution or something to actually appropriate funds?
No, it's already appropriated. This would be a motion of support. And that's all. I mean, it would just be
We don't
financially
need to
being
like,
support.
so we'd actually be able to push this to council tonight?
Well, right now, what's on the legal memo is to amend appropriations and actually increase the general fund by $2,000 so that that can be transferred to the recreation fund. What you're proposing, I would assume, is just a direct expenditure into
Correct.
ARPA, and that just meaning that can be done. Your motion of support to do that would be, I think, appropriate based on the discussion, but it's not necessary in order for the action to take place, if that's your question.
No, my question was just, what do we have to do to make sure it gets done? I don't know if we need to like do
Nothing,
appropriations or
where
something.
if they have our blessing, you could do it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, Rob wrote something up, I think we just have to adjust it, instead of saying reserve, reserve, it would just say,
Yeah, but what he's saying is that once it's coming from ARPA, we don't have to do that anymore. You can just use it.
Right, it would just be a direct expenditure into the ARPA funding, and it would just, I'll show you how to do that
Okay,
in the
okay.
requisition.
but yes, if you have it tonight, hopefully.
Yes.
Thank you.
The next topic, the next, point is to discuss the $25,000 that we've spoken last time to move over, that we got a $25,000 bonus for signing a contract with the tower, American Towers, that's for the cell phone tower in the park. That bonus, we would like to reinvest back into the park to make a walking path. There's been discussion about the walking path. So we just have to, give our recommendation to move that money that came in straight into the park, walking path fund. I'm not sure what that fund is under, but, just to make that happen.
Looks like there's a specific like resolution for it.
So that resolution is in the legal memo.
It's 2015-12.
So I would assume the correct language is motion to refer the resolution to council for support of the $25,000 American Tower for the walking path.
Motion to recommend resolution number 25-12 to council or pass. And I move over $25,000. Do I have a second? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Next is a discussion for JMA. That's a company that we use for our engineer. They said that they could come up with a plan to do the walking path and how much it would be, instead of going through the regular park RFP way where they think that we are bigger than City of Cincinnati just to have a small little park redone. And therefore, this is also just to give our, correct, is this resolution, or this is just to give our recommendation that?
It was just connected to the $25,000. So again, this is just the JMA has volunteered to look at what it would cost to put together a proposal for the park, which would just be finishing the walking path and anything, I don't know anything else beyond that.
Correct. So there's a certain amount of engineering that has to be done so we can determine whether that's something that we can do in-house. We would need to hire a contractor to do it. That's what they're going to make a recommendation about.
Okay, perfect.
So there's nothing really to do at this point. It's just, this is on everybody's radar.
What does that cost to get them to do it?
We don't know
we
yet.
don't-
That's,
No, for JMA. to do
we
it.
we don't know yet. They're gonna give us a proposal of what like what
Oh,
the
to do
scope.
that survey or whatever.
Correct. I mean, it should be pretty small because it's just the walking path and it'll be engineering of drainage and thickness of the concrete and all, like there's a lot of details, but
Yeah.
they haven't told us yet what that would cost.
All right, the next thing that was added onto the agenda is a discussion of the app that came up in executive. And there is talk that this app requires a fee to keep it going. Now, first of all, the app was pretty expensive in the first place for what it accomplishes. And second of all, I remember clearly him telling us that there's no fees associated with this. Maybe I'm wrong, but that was what my memory tells me. If this is gonna cost us $6,000 a year, we could take that money and use it other ways, and I believe we would get a lot more out of our money than spending it on this app that most of the village does
It's
not.
the website, it's just the website.
It's pulling information from the website. A little kid could really make that app.
The biggest thing, the alerts it gives you for the weather, you're getting from all the other apps. It's just an extra.
Correct.
One of my kids says to me, this is just the website.
It is.
It's just it.
And that's exactly what it is. I'm not sure if we all understood that clearly or we were shocked that it's all of what it is. So we want to have a clarification on what the costs are and if it's needed to continue the app. And if so, then we're going to have to send it back to executive to see if we should keep the app or not.
So we've been actively working on this. I talked to the mayor. My immediate recommendation is not to renew it because we're not using it to its full advantage. And what the mayor asked me to take a look at was whether or not we can open it up to have more people be able to use the app, which we can do to actually put pushes out. I've also asked them to tune their yearly fee to us to a different price point, which I've not heard anything back from them at this point, which is why we've not made a recommendation to council whether or not to go ahead and renew the app at this point. So I think there needs to be a discussion with community engagement about whether or not they want to use the app as a part of their menu of notifications. That's the discussion the mayor and I have had.
Yeah, so just for further clarity on that, what I was suggesting is that like each chair, for instance, of a committee would have a login that they could do and they could push out their notifications on it. That's all possible to do. We just haven't been using that feature is what I'm understanding. And I just got a login myself either last week, is that what it was?
A couple days ago.
Yeah, so, and when I tried logging it in, I don't have the privilege of be able to push anything out. So we need to figure out what the instruction manual is on that. But that's, if we were gonna keep it, we would need to be using that kind of functionality, is my opinion.
Does that, or the program behind it, track the usage rate of it, like how many touches it gets a month?
It should. I haven't, maybe Ron can speak to that better than I can, because I have not seen that kind of dashboard that would give you that kind of information.
I'd love to find out to see,
That's the discussion we're having with them.
yeah, exactly, you know, how, if it's being touched 1,000 times a month, like that's a whole different discussion than a couple people checking it.
Eric, when is this bill due for the renewal?
It's upcoming. I'm sorry, I don't have an exact date.
They understand that we need additional information before we will move forward. So there's really not a time limit at this point.
Okay, so I'll table this discussion to, actually, I recommend this discussion to move to community engagement and to reconvene and report back to all the heads of committees to see if there's actual need for it and how much usage we could get out of it and if it'll be worth our money or not. And to Ron to find out what would that price point be, because $6,000 is nothing to talk about. We can use that money in much better ways than on the app. So if they come back with something that will make sense, then let us know.
That was a motion. Is there a second?
Second. Darren,
All
can I
those in
have it?
favor?
Aye.
Our next finance meeting is called for April 28th, on Monday at 6 p.m.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.